To the surprise of no one, absolutely no one, the latest round of important public school testing for high school seniors shows that they have made absolutely no progress in math and reading. None, zero zip, not since we put Common Core in, absolutely no progress. But progress, in the sense of education, now means progressivism. So in that sense, turning our kids into illiterate progressives, it's been a hell of a success. I'm Dr. Duke. She'd be Katie if she were here, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. As you can see, I'm enjoying my Freedom Tumbler, but nobody likes to drink alone. I drink unless you're Lou Reed. So head over to the patriotclub.us, that's patriotclub.us, and get yourself one of these and help support the program. All right, moving on to our first story, we find again that according to the latest tests, high school seniors are making absolutely zero improvement on their math and reading scores. With all of this billions and billions of dollars poured down the rat hole, with all of this Bill Gates gerrymandering of education, with all of this Common Core takeover, all of this federalizing of education, all of this attention from teachers' unions, all of these referendum that just passed in the latest election cycle, pumping more of your money into these kids' high schools, nothing changes. We have got to admit to ourselves that we've reached the point where education in this country is not about education, it's about ideology, it's about transforming your kids into tools of electioneering, right? Ask yourself who would be president right now if the 18 to 22-year-olds, the 18 to 25-year-olds, that college demographic actually got an actual education and not a fake political one. Guess who would be president right now in a landslide? But alas, that's not what we have. American high schoolers' senior math scores did not improve at all between 2015 and 2019, while their reading scores actually fell, according to the latest round of federal tests. The scores highlight the country's broader failure to boost student test scores over the last decade and the particular stubbornness of high school reading results, which have actually declined steeply, relatively steeply, since the 1990s. Meanwhile, the one thing we told we were going to get when we got Common Core is you might get lower standards, you might not get better students, but you're going to get racial equity. We're going to commonize education so everybody gets the same education. No more white boys learning more than black boys. No more Asians trumping Hispanics. What we're going to do is give you a common education. Well, you're surprised to learn that the gap between the highest and the lowest performing 12th graders is widening, not closing. The same trend was visible in the latest results for 4th and 8th graders. Quote, in both math and reading, we have noticed a pattern of declining scores that have been concentrated among lower performing students, said Peggy Carr, the Associate Commissioner of the arm of the Federal Education Department that administers this exam. Quote, this is a troubling, isn't it troubling that we have destroyed our public school education by transforming it away from learning and mastery of subject and objectivity and tests and reading and, literacy. How troubling. Who would have thought that throwing out actual learning in favor of political pedagogy would turn out stupid kids? Who could have thought it? It's troubling, she says. It's a troubling indication that too many students are falling behind. Didn't we have a No Child Left Behind? Didn't George Bush give us that? Didn't we get Common Core? Didn't we get Goals 2000 from Willie Clinton? Was going to fix all this? And how are they going to fix it? More money, less accountability, more sops to teachers' unions, less actual study, a deconstruction of Western values, anti-history classrooms, lots of sex in the classrooms to young children, all of the promotion of LGBTQ values across the board, teaching 6-year-olds that their gender is neuter. They don't have a gender. Gender is whatever you say it is. The scores released Wednesday offer a grim picture. I like that. Grim. What kind of a picture? It's a grim one. Of American educational outcomes at a moment when the coronavirus pandemic is creating unprecedented new challenges, right? Always got to throw the virus in there. But again, 99% of this happened before you even had a virus. Don't be blaming the virus for this. All the virus did was finally show a lot of Americans that the American school system has no clothes. It's the emperor that has no clothes. Finally realized a lot of parents, when those kids were forced to stay at home, how little the schools had actually taught them. The only piece of potential good news is it's possible that the lack of progress is connected to rising high school graduation rates. This is good news. Seriously. The article actually says that it's good news that maybe the failure of our kids to read and do math is offset by the fact that more of them are graduating. So social promotion, passing and then graduating ignorant kids is the answer for this. How do we fix the fact that our kids can't learn in public schools? How do we fix that our public schools are irremediably broken? How do we fix the fact that our public schools are indoctrinating and sexualizing and exploiting our kids rather than teaching them? Well, we're just going to graduate all of them. That's answered, asked and answered. And guess what the colleges are going to do? Wait, you're a 18-year-old with a high school diploma who can't read and write? Well, we would be uninclusive not to take you. If all we take in colleges are the literate, smart, prepared kids, well, then we're not being inclusive. The purpose of college, right? Like the purpose of college, of high school, is to make sure everybody gets a degree. So what we're going to do in the name of inclusion is we're going to take every single high school kid that's got the diploma but can't read and write, we're going to invite them into our prestigious college, and then when we can't teach them or won't teach them how to write either, we're not going to fail them. We're going to give them a diploma too. As long as they pay their $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, reading, literate or not, will give them their diplomas. This is education in the progressive era. Everybody has to have one. And if everybody has to have one, it's not fair that anybody doesn't have one. If everybody has to have one, we don't measure that anymore in terms of reading, writing, and math and science, because that excludes kids. There are kids who can't read, won't read, don't want to read, don't care about reading. There's kids who won't do math, can't do math, aren't interested in math. And so what we have to do is we social promote them as high school kids, and then put them into colleges in the name of inclusion, and then social promote them with PhDs. Eventually, pay enough money, we'll give you one. Joined now by Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Alex, another great story for this week, one that we see as a pattern across this country. We have some conservative kids at Nichols College in Louisiana who were persecuted for simply expressing their support for Donald Trump. They, as kids often do on college campuses, they took chalk to the sidewalks, chalk to the buildings, expressing their support for Donald Trump, and everybody from the student body to the administration tried to crush him, but this one has a happy ending.
It does, yeah. So these students did exactly what pro-communists, pro-murder of unborn babies had done just like a month before. They put their political views in chalk on sidewalks and things like that. They supported President Trump. They supported unborn babies. They supported free speech. And so naturally, as has happened repeatedly on college campuses across America, the totalitarian left went absolutely bonkers. The president of the university sent out a big email to everybody saying, oh, it's unacceptable. People were chalking without a permit. Oh, heavens, no. They got this huge meeting together where all these crybabies, they made me feel bad. Oh, I feel unsafe because there's a Trump message on the floor. So they cried and whined and moaned. Fortunately, as you mentioned, there was a happy ending. The state attorney general got involved. Some congressmen, some U.S. senators got involved. And it ended up actually completely backfiring on the totalitarians. They even ended up having to rescind their totalitarian policies. So it was good news. But in the meantime, these poor conservative Republican students were just absolutely demonized, targeted, threatened. It was disgusting.
Well, you know, as well as I do, that the process is the punishment, that this victory is a good thing. It's good that the Republicans hung in there. But this is the incidents like this make it harder and harder and harder for kids to stand up what they believe on college campuses if what they believe challenges the orthodoxy. Let's not forget that. And so let's just go back to the story a little tighter. So do you ordinarily need a permit from the university to chalk up campus?
Yes, you normally need a permit, and the college Republicans did not apply for one. So they said, all right, you know what? We messed up. We didn't get a permit to put chalk on the floor. Sorry about that. You can punish us. So they were willing and ready to accept responsibility. But they did point out the double standards here because just like a month earlier, there were pro-communist messages and pro-murder of unborn baby messages chalked all over the campus, and nobody complained at all.
Were there permissions for those? Do you know?
No. Those were also
So that's the
unpermitted.
key. That's what I wanted to get at. So a couple of weeks before this, you have all kinds of permitless protests and chalk all over campus. No one said a word about that. What was the university's response to the double standard there? When they pointed out, okay, we don't have a permit, but neither did the people who went before. Why are you coming after us when no one said anything about them? What was the university's response?
Basically, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. We don't know anything about anything. Conservatives bad. We must destroy you.
Did they formally try to punish the campus conservatives for chalking the campus?
They did, yeah. They were actually preparing disciplinary actions. And there was a difference between what the administration was doing and what the fellow students were doing. The fellow students, I mean, I got a lot of the text messages, the social media posts, the videos of what was going on. They were being called every nasty name in the book. They were being threatened. They were being demonized. I got to the point where some of these students actually had to have police escort them to class and to their cars. So what came from the students was even more vile. All these overgrown babies who really belong in a daycare center complaining that their feelings were hurt, and so in retaliation we're going to terrorize you, we're going to scare you, we're going to threaten you. The administration was working on sanctions against the organization, against the leadership of the organization. Luckily they backed down all that, but the terrorism, the threats, the nastiness, the racist remark. The president of the college Republicans here is actually a young black man, and they were calling him every nasty name that you can think of in the book. We've got the social media post. They were calling him, words that I'm not even going to say, but absolutely disgusting. And then any who weren't black were being described as racists and white supremacists and all the rest of it. Just disgusting.
So over and above the charges that were pending against these conservative students, was there any commentary from the administration about how these kids were being attacked by the threats, the violence? You and I both know, Alex, that if somebody's using racial epithets against a minority in any other context, this is a national story. This is a story that would compel the university to completely audit itself and do mea culpas. Was there any comment about the young African American Republican who was being attacked this way?
No, not at all. The president of the university did say, "Hey, the police are investigating the threats," and that's it.
Alex, after the break, we're going to come back and talk more about this. This is an interesting story. Back now with Alex Newman. Alex, talking about what happened at Nichols State, where a little college in Louisiana, where conservative kids found themselves on the wrong side of public opinion by chalking up campus in support of Donald Trump. They didn't have a permit, which they were supposed to, but just a couple weeks before that, there were a number of liberal chalk incidents, chalking in the name of progressive causes, including abortion, that also didn't have a permit and nothing happened. We also talked about how the Republican kids, unlike the Democrat kids who did the chalking, not only were they censored by attempted to be censored by their university, but the other students were just vile to these kids, including the young African American who was in charge of the young Republican group. And so the university had really nothing to say about the threats, had nothing to say about the racial epithets that were hurled at a young African American in a Southern school. You would think this would be a huge story. So let me ask you this. What changed the mind of the university? You mentioned that outside groups got involved. Tell me about that. Who are these outside groups?
Yeah, it was really kind of a wonderful turn of events. The state attorney general there, I believe his name is Jeff Landry, got involved, and he warned the university president and the university administration, "Hey guys, these young people have free speech rights as well." He actually posted a public note on Twitter, said that they were looking into this. One of the U.S. senators from Louisiana also got involved. And so these college Republicans were incredibly grateful. I spoke to some of them. I got statements from some of them. Some of them weren't willing to go on the record. They were scared for their own physical safety. They were scared about retaliation. And who can blame them with the kind of stuff that was being said, the kind of stuff that was being written? There was talk of like your mom and, we're going to come get you. Horrible, horrible stuff. But fortunately, the adults did step into the room, and they told the university president, sorry, no, you cannot persecute students for their free speech rights. You cannot tolerate threats and the sort of abuse hurled at young people for their political views. So fortunately, higher level government officials did get involved and protect free speech. But just imagine 20 or 30 years down the road when the totalitarians in these daycare centers masquerading as universities end up serving as state attorney general and U.S. senator and things like that. Who will then step in to defend young people on university campuses or people anywhere who want to express a contrary point of view? We're heading toward absolute disaster. And realize this, Louisiana is one of the reddest of the red states. I mean, super conservative state. This isn't, Massachusetts or Connecticut or California or something. This is a very, very bad omen for where things are heading in this country.
It is, and with what's looking more and more like a potential Biden takeover of government, Democrat takeover of government, this is going to get worse. I mean, think about the reforms that Betsy Voss was able to work through. The idea that young males on campus who have been accused of sexual assault are owed due process. That's going to be overturned from day one. The climate's going to get a lot worse. And what troubles me most about this, Alex, is right on display here is that two-faced liberal monster, the Janus-like two-faced monster, where on the one hand, weep, 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 howl in pain because you hurt my feelings. Your actions, your First Amendment rights hurt my feelings so bad that I need the university and everybody else to censor you. But then those same wailing and crying children, the moment they're done whining and they've wrung all of the sympathy out of that they can get, they turn around and do exactly what you said. They start sending death threats. They start throwing racial epithets because their feelings were hurt, which never really happened. That's the one side of the monster. Their fake feelings were hurt. Now they're justified in becoming the actual bullies, fascists, and terrorists they accuse the conservative kids of being.
Yeah. And you know what's so sad, Duke? I think a lot of these brainwashed, indoctrinated young people on these campuses, they don't understand where this is leading. They don't understand that they're being used as useful idiots. They don't understand where similar things have gone in other countries. All we have to do is look at Cuba, at Vietnam, at Cambodia, at China, at the Soviet Union, at Nazi Germany. These types of things eventually lead to absolute horror. It's not just, beating down young people for expressing an opinion you don't like. These things eventually turn to bloodshed. This is very, very dangerous for our country, for Louisiana, for Nicholls State University, even for these brainwashed young people that think they're doing something good by terrorizing people who disagree with them. Eventually, they're going to come for you, you fools. This is very, very dangerous, and the adults in the room need to step up and say, enough of this idiocy, or it's going to end in absolute disaster, dude.
All those totalitarian countries you named, you say that these kids don't understand. The purpose of college universities in those totalitarian states is not understanding its ideology. And I think we have to realize our university systems now are about ideology. They are not about understanding. They're not about teaching. They're not about the search for truth or balance or fairness or justice. It's all about political power. That's how these things go. And our university systems now mirror those in totalitarian countries much more than they mirror what our universities were 50 years ago. Alex, thanks for your time today. It's time now for some real education. I'm going to talk to you today about the Cancun Underwater Museum. Yes, it's indeed a thing. It's a real thing, a museum of sculpture and contemplation under the ocean off the coast of Cancun in Mexico. And Mike, my producer, is going to scroll some of these pictures for you while I give you a sense of what this really unique instant classic is. The Cancun Underwater Museum is a nonprofit endeavor based in Mexico and devoted to the art of conservation, which is interesting. The purpose of this art museum was first and foremost conservation. The coral reefs along the Cancun, the shore, in the waters off of Cancun were being destroyed by boats and anchors and tourists. All sorts of things were corroding the coral reef there that sustains so much life. And so they decided, what if we turned the underground here of the ocean, what if we put so much sculpture down there, art down there, that then could be encrusted by the coral, sort of provide the raw material in these statues for coral to grow back and to grow on them. And then if we call it a museum, we can limit what kind of boats are allowed to drive over it. You see the eco-authoritarianism coming into this as well. We can limit the kind of boats that can travel here. It'll be a museum, which means you can snorkel under and watch and see the stuff, but we're going to keep this area, try to keep this area anyway pristine. The museum has a total of 500 sculptures, and take a look at that last one you showed, Mike, if you don't mind. Now, I knew I had a twin brother somewhere. I knew there's somewhere in the world where my doppelganger exists, and there it is. Somebody sculpted me sitting there in my jockey shorts, watching TV with my shaved head and my, let's just say, calorie-conscious diet. Anyway, the museum has a total of 500 sculptures, mostly by British sculptor Jason de Taylor and by 5 other Mexican sculptors, with 3 different galleries submerged between 9 and 20 feet deep in the ocean at the Cancun National Marine Park. It was started in 2009 and officially opened in 2010. At the beginning of 2008, Jamie Gonzalez Canto and Jason de Taylor began to create the plans for an underwater museum that would be formed by nature into a coral reef. Dr. Jaime Gonzalez Miki saw that the natural coral reefs were being damaged by tourist anchors, divers. In particular, the largest coral reef in Cancun, the Manjones Reef, was receiving the most damage because it was the most often visited by divers and snorkelers. But by the end of 2013, 5 years after the foundation of MUSA, a total of 500 concrete sculptures had been placed on the ocean floor, 487 by Taylor and the rest by 5 different Mexican sculptors. 477 are exhibited in the Manjones Gallery and 23 in the Nizuc Gallery. In addition, 26 replicas and 1 original are located in a visitor center in Plaza Cuculcan, a mall at the Hotel Zone in Cancun. So really kind of an interesting, daring concept. Turning art into utility, making art that is both utile and interesting and wonderful. It's a way that the pseudoscience of environmentalism and the artistic movement along the aesthetic, the waning aesthetic values of our artistic culture work together to promote both at the same time. All right, as always, if you're a fan of the show, do please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation of $99 toward our Patriot Club. The club entitles you to this handsome tumbler. As a thank, we will ship that to you, etched with the words, "Freedom never tasted so good." So visit thepatriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Now, time for our fun fact of the day. You should not be receiving any more flyers, phone calls, text, emails, or advertising about the absurd 2020 election. Hallelujah. And that's going to do it for the Dr. Duke Show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. For Katie, I say hello, wherever you are. And until next time, stay educated, my friends.